All right, today we are diving deep into a universe that's built on a conflict of truly cosmic proportions. It's this incredible story about absolute power, total annihilation, and maybe, just maybe, a fragile bit of hope that could change the very rules of reality.
So, the entire system we're about to unpack is governed by one fundamental rule, the abyssal dialectic. You can think of it like a law of physics for existence itself. For anything to be a sovereign I, it has to automatically create its own opposite, a check against its power. It's this endless, kind of self-defeating loop of creation and then erasure.
And this quote just brilliantly lays out the stakes, doesn't it? What it's telling us is that in this universe, the grander you build, the more glorious your creation is, well, the more powerful the shadow you cast becomes. It's a system where total victory is basically impossible, and everything is always on the verge of just being dried up and wiped away.
So here's how we're going to break down this cosmic struggle. We'll kick things off with the deadlock and its two main players, then we'll introduce a terrifying wild card. After that, we'll cover the horrifying rules of the game, and then we'll see how new forces of hope might just lead to the ultimate synthesis, the Four-Fold Atlantis.
Okay, so right at the heart of this abyssal dialectic, you've got these two opposing forces. You have a creator and a denier, and they're locked in this eternal battle. They are the thesis and the antithesis of this entire reality.
First up, we have King Glaucus. He is the absolute I, the ultimate expression of sovereign will. Through this wild event called Chimoda, he consumed some unique Atlantean flora, and it literally rewrote his essence. He became a living, planet-scale biological computer, a hyper-cerebral architect. He uses something called phase-shift sorcery, which means he controls every state of water, ice, liquid, and vapor, like it's a direct extension of his own ego. He's the great builder of this reality.
And of course, where you have an absolute I, you have to have an absolute no. And that no is the Mephistophelian shadow. He was born from the mortality that King Glaucus himself cast aside, and he is the spirit who denies all of existence. His one and only goal is to dissolve everything, and he does it with a fourth state of matter called burning water, a kind of dark plasma that erases the very stain of existence.
So here you can really see their perfect opposition. Glaucus builds, the shadow erases. But the really crucial thing to get here is that their power is always linked. The shadow's magnitude and complexity are exactly proportional to the king's ambition. The more the king builds his museum of the self, the stronger the force of annihilation gets. It is a perfect deadlock.
But what happens when something shows up that doesn't play by the rules of this two-sided game? Something that operates completely outside the dialectic? Well, let's meet the predator.
The captain from the abyss is what you'd call a parasitic accident of logic. He wasn't created as an opposite to anything, he just kind of emerged from the chaotic magical runoff of the Titans' clash. His entire being is focused on just one thing, total dehydration. His biology has thinned into this saline ichor, and in the process, it stripped him of all color, all heat, and all mercy. He doesn't want to rule or erase, he just wants to consume.
And his methods are just horrifying. He brews this chaos water just to rot the digital grids of the modern world. He can fold the very fabric of the sea to travel through the world's deepest wounds. And maybe the most chilling part, he sees all life as just water waiting to be stolen. See, he's not part of the philosophical debate. He is pure, insatiable hunger. He is the ultimate predator.
Now this whole cosmic conflict isn't just random chaos. Nope. It's governed by a very strict, unbreakable set of rules. 3 immutable laws that lock everything into this terrifying cycle.
These laws basically create a cosmic prison. The first one, reciprocal assertion, just means that anything you create automatically generates its own destroyer. The second, elemental transmutation, ensures that any divine order will always be broken down and returned to primordial chaos. And finally, the law of final entropy. This one states that the shadow's necrotic flux, that burning water, is the absolute ceiling on evolution. Nothing can grow beyond its power to erase it.
But there is one figure who seems to be able to bend these rules a little, the Sea Stormer. He acts as a kind of mediator, and he uses this unique power called rune magic. He literally writes new laws, the laws of the dead, directly into the molecular bonds of the sea.
This creates a force that can actually override the foundational physics of this world, which gives us a little hint that maybe the system isn't entirely absolute.
So, we're left with this huge question. In a world that is basically designed for self-destruction, a system where every single action has an equal and opposite destructive reaction, is there any room at all for genuine creation? Is there any room for hope?
And that is where our story takes a really dramatic turn. Two new forces emerge, and they challenge the entire deadlock, not with more power, but with a completely different kind of energy: regeneration and life.
This hope shows up in two figures. First, there's Salome. Her Logos magic, which she channels through an emerald staff and amplifies through her bond with a great Leviathan, creates an entirely new frequency of power, one that just bypasses the king's destructive grid altogether. And then you have Chloris, who represents the terrestrial yes. Instead of fighting the king's divine lightning, she anchors it in the fertile soil, transforming its destructive energy into a force for regenerative growth. You see, they're not fighting the old war, they're creating a new reality.
So what's the ultimate goal of these new regenerative powers? It's not to win the old game of creation and destruction. No, it's to create an entirely new reality. This is the hope of the Four-Fold Atlantis.
The old reality was a two-fold Atlantis, just a simple deadlock between the king and his shadow. The Four-Fold Atlantis, though, that's a true synthesis. It's a reality where the fundamental forces, the sea, the soil, the sun, and the spirit, are no longer fighting each other, but are harmonized into a single, unified, life-giving frequency. And this right here is the core takeaway. The shadow sees existence as a stain that needs to be erased. The king sees it as a museum that needs to be controlled. But this new synthesis suggests a third option, that the stain of existence isn't a flaw at all, but something that can be nurtured and healed and cultivated into something beautiful.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty profound thought. In a universe that is fundamentally built on a dialectic of destruction, can a new frequency, a vibration of hope, of regeneration, and of unity, can it truly overcome the foundational laws of this nightmare and heal reality itself? Well, the answer to that remains to be seen.